everyone, welcome to another Music Talk Tuesday, and today I thought it would be interesting to address something that I think is very important when it comes to the music industry in general, and I think is something that people have noticed, I think, over the years as musicians sort of establish themselves within the industry and, sort of make a name for themselves. And that often is some sort of identity or a persona, if you will, that again could be just reflected through, the way they dress or the way they act, or also from a music standpoint too, which I think is very important and something that's really cool. So I kind of want to talk about this more, and again, as I go on, I'll kind of explain what I'm really trying to say, because it's sort of hard to make sort of a title for this video. I'm just probably going to say it as musician's identity or a musician's evolvement or something of that nature, because I think there are sort of two camps that sort of end up happening when it comes to musicians making us what ultimately ends up happening once they make sort of a name for themselves. And either they choose to change their identity again, so their identity kind of evolves either through their music, through their image, a combination of the two, or it remains sort of kind of stagnant, or certain elements maybe change while others sort of stay the same. For example, let's take Linkin Park and Coldplay as an example here. They were artists who I think did like the idea of experimentation, at least throughout the course of their sort of rise to fame and popularity. I think that Coldplay in particular, although they've stayed within pretty much the same genre, their sounds and the way that they kind of showcase their music is maybe a little bit different than when they initially started out. And again, this has left some people on the one hand where they feel like it was a bad choice for them to do that, and then others on the other hand who do find it enjoyable. Now, again, sometimes I do like it when artists evolve, and again, I think I have liked Coldplay's evolvement to a certain extent, but again, there are maybe some songs that won't grab my attention even if they do become fairly popular. So again, I think it's kind of a toss-up, and it's a risk, but that's oftentimes what people do in order to, find a means to express themselves, because sometimes, being the same for too long gets people disinterested. And again, sometimes having some change happen to you and changing the way things are sort of structured with the way you present yourself when it comes to music can be either good or bad as well. So again, it's a gamble either way. It's a gamble to stay the same, and it's a gamble to change. And it's sort of the same with Linkin Park. Linkin Park started off, with the really strong album within sort of the earlier 2000s. And then after that, some have said that it's kind of decreased as far as quality is concerned, but I don't necessarily believe that's the case. Again, I think it's kind of like Coldplay, where I feel like sometimes maybe the change works, other times it just doesn't, in my opinion. So again, Linkin Park did used to be a little bit more angsty too with their music, and now it's not necessarily as it doesn't have that same, I guess, edge, you could say. And I think that's probably why a lot of people were angry, because that's why they initially gravitated towards Linkin Park. So again, there's a lot of things that I think could really impact the way people perceive these artists and sort of their decision making when it comes to what they ultimately end up producing. Um, but again, I think for me personally, especially in these cases, it is kind of like a toss up. There are points where I think change can work, and other times where it doesn't, I think, do much for the artist. But I think, again, a lot of this is very, I think, opinion based, and it all is based upon your understanding of an artist. So again, that's, I think, something that's important to note. And again, those are just two examples. Now, and again, this is mostly from a music standpoint. Like, they haven't really changed as far as their, image, like, their dress or their attitude. They've been pretty much the same. They've been kind of very professional, and so that's kind of something that I think has remained consistent, and I think it's definitely good that they maintain that kind of professionalism, since that is fairly rare in the music industry nowadays, as you'll probably notice. So yeah. Um, so purely on a music level, I think they did try to tinker with things and tried to make changes. And again, it's a gamble either way. It's a gamble if you stay the same. It's a gamble if you change. And now now I'm going to discuss some artists that I think sort of throughout the kind of throughout their careers have kind of stayed the same. They stayed stagnant with the one particular image and identity. Taylor Swift, I think, is a perfect example. The only thing that I think has changed from her music is again, she started off with a little bit of country, and then she's gone completely, I think, on the side of pop. I almost feel like the country is, when I listen to it, it's like it's pretty much non-existent now. But as far as an image is concerned, and as far as her songs, they haven't really changed all that much. She's still the very sassy Taylor Swift, and the other thing too is that her songs, primarily the more popular ones, I think, are of songs that revolve around her breakups, and it's been a common thing to kind of that people sort of laugh at and make fun of, is the idea, the fact that she makes all of these songs about sort of men who supposedly did her wrong. And when I think about artists who kind of they don't change their like lineup and have this consistency, I don't know. I just think it says a little bit about the artist. Like, if all you're doing is talking about breakup songs, and or all you're doing is putting that one energy in that one thing, it usually doesn't really pay off. Although with Taylor Swift in particular, it's paid off significantly. But at the same time, I think that to be honest, I don't think she has a whole lot to offer. I mean, yeah, she does try to mix things up a bit, but for the most part, she has remained standard ever since she came in. Maybe a little bit of a genre shift, if any, but she's kind of maintained again that identity, that image of America's sweetheart. Even though, with all of these breakup songs, I almost wonder, is she really our sweetheart? Is she someone we should really, put out there, if she's making all of these songs about, boys who did her wrong? I mean, you almost think like, Taylor, maybe it's you? Have you ever thought about that, Taylor? Maybe it's you? Have you ever and the people you choose to date, like, if this is constantly happening to you. So again, I think that, there's just this, and the fact that too that people make fun of it, I think almost shows that, yeah, it's her fame is a little bit ridiculous. Similar to other artists, for example, and yeah, I shouldn't really bring him up, but at the same time, I'm trying to kind of establish a point here. Uh, Justin Bieber in particular, his image has probably, I'd say, stayed fairly consistent. Yeah, maybe his behavior changed once he started to get really, really ultra un unashamedly rich. Maybe those things kind of influenced his behavior, because again, his behavior has sort of changed. But again, the music fairly the same. Love songs. Being that kind of uh, America's dream boy. That image has stayed consistent throughout. So. Uh, so again, there is this kind of, and again, is his music pretty much the same. So again, artists do this in different ways, and I find that to be interesting. Now, for people like Miley Cyrus, you can definitely say there was a real shift within behavior as far as personality and image and all that. Um, Music, you could probably say so too, because again, I think she kind of went the Taylor Swift route, where she did become a little bit more pop and not as country. So yeah, I think when you're comparing these kinds of different uh, artists, you can see that there is some forms of change, and then there's some forms of consistency, and then that sort of impacts the way the public views them. Um, so, and the way we kind of see music, and uh, see maybe even ourselves in a way. But again, I think either way, it's a gamble. And sort of artists, kind of depending, I kind of have to, sort of figure out, what they want to change, what they want to remain the same. And and I think that's something that that just has a huge impact. Because the way we saw this artist maybe so many years ago is not how we see this artist now. And again, it can have an impact as to maybe how popular they are, how successful they are. But again, I think it should come back to the music and to the effort. I think if there's a genuine effort put into it, um, and into establishing themselves as artists, then I can understand and um, and kind of get behind the decision making process. But as far as just for the sake of getting attention, and it's not really for the sake of their career so much as this is to just cause problems, or just be just create havoc for no reason. Again, I think that's something that I think I would definitely discourage. And yeah, and then I think it all comes down to um what ultimately um people end up gravitating towards. Some people gravitate towards a certain persona, and they'll like that persona, or they'll maybe like that change of identity in that person, and then they'll start to you know follow them. Because I'm sure the people who knew Miley Cyrus back in the day probably aren't the same people who are paying attention to her now. So again, it's all a gamble. It's all playing the cards, playing with the demographic, seeing where, you know, they fit in somehow. Um, and again, I think more so there is this pressure maybe from those that are in the higher ranks within the industry on the artists to maybe maintain a certain image, or you know go a certain way, or um, or or just uh, or just embrace the way in which they maybe even distribute their music. Again, you're getting into kind of the politics of it. Um, and you almost wonder too if really that's the artist's intentions, is to reflect onto that identity, or if there's somebody behind the curtain sort of telling them, hey, wear this, act this way, this will make you a lot of money, blah blah blah. If there's some kind of actor in the background, playing puppeteering. So again, I think there might be there there is I think there are certain ways in which artists can make these kinds of distinctions when it comes to their identity and how they want to change things up maybe a bit. But again, it's kind of a gamble. It's a gamble either way though, because some people, may uh, maybe more people would like it if they changed. Maybe more people would prefer them to stay the same. And again, I think these behind the scenes actors might be having some influence and impact on that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's really ultimately all I can say about this subject, but I think it's very interesting because I think a large part of how um, I kind of perceive, um, musicians and their work, and how I sort of interpret their music, is a lot through how they showcase themselves. If they showcase themselves in a very kind of professional manner, and they address really interesting topics, and they're you can tell that there's some passion and effort with the instrumentals, and the lyrics too, then I think I can get more behind uh, these artists and their identity, even if that identity maybe changes a little over time, like Coldplay, for example, or Linkin Park. Um, but when it comes to, other artists who make these quasi changes, or sort of stay the same and don't try to maybe think out of the box a little, or who go completely out of the box into for the sake of just attention, instead of trying to be a good musician, then I think it's a real, their identity is just something that I definitely don't gravitate towards. And again, examples like this include Miley Cyrus, Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, etc., etc. List go on. But yeah, I think that's really though all I can say about this topic. I think it's very interesting, and I think, if we think more about these things, I think it'll make us understand music a bit more, and how even if we'd like to think it's all about the music, it's really not. It's also about the musicians and the people who are behind making the music that ultimately is kind of what makes the music, and what identity they showcase. But yeah, I think that's really all I can say. Any questions, comments, concerns? More than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.